SEO Sundays, free versus paid podcasting hosting dashboards. Welcome to what you know as a great place to learn information, which is the We Don't Play podcast show. And you're also especially welcome to the room today because we're going to have a very serious conversation about these two platforms. And I was thinking, what better way to bring this conversation rather than just talk about it, really bring it here and ask you, the listener, the active listener, the person who is taking action, to know and ask yourself, is this something that I want to do? How much time do I have? And do I really want to make sure that I'm doing it correctly, so I'm also not wasting my time or any other person's time? Because sometimes when you're creating content, when you're doing a lot of things, you're also building along those things. And one of those things that you're building is a relationship. You're building a relationship between you and the person that you're connecting with when you're creating content on a social platform like this. So it really makes a lot of sense when you think about the long part of this and ask yourself, okay, what are we really doing here? How are we really connecting the dots? And if we're really doing this for real, what are we doing that's going to make this feel like it's actually a real thing and it's not a joke? And sometimes we have to start from somewhere, but we also have to think about where we're going. And that's why I thought about, why not talk about this and bring it in a different way so that you can also understand how it works for you as a business. And then you can also decide how best you want to move and what move you want to make if you decide on what you want to take as your next step. So we're going to talk about free versus paid podcasting hosting dashboards, because let me just say this real quick. Happy August again, and I hope you're having an amazing time of the year, because there are a lot of things that have changed and I want to also share them with you. And I talked about it in the last episode. And I wanted to also bring to your attention that this month, August, specifically on the 12th, is going to be 6 years, as you know already, or may not have known, but now you know, 6 years podcasting consistently. And I'm grateful, I'm thankful to God for all the years that have gone by, because since 2019, podcasting has been something I've been doing off music. So I've been making music. I'm still a producer. I play the drums at my church. I'm also still big on music. I always make sure I have new jingles and new melodies for each season and every season this in the We Don't Play podcast show. So thank you, Renee. I appreciate you. Glad to have you as well here. Warrior Dude, Patricia, Dan, and Nelline. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you as well. This is consistency, and I've been doing music. I've been making music ever since I was like 6 years old. So it's like it's been happening for a long time. And by the time I pivoted from playing the drums to getting on a microphone to making music to getting into a podcast, from starting a podcast was where I realized, okay, you can be on a platform, but you also have to think about the platform that you want to connect on. And when I think about music and podcasting, that's why I'm giving you some background so that you can also see this a little differently, because it's not always what you have. You have to think about the perspectives you're also giving, so that somebody's also thinking in their own capacity to create their own perspective, to create their own decision through a pathway of succession rates that you've been able to give them while they're listening through. So why I gave you the musical background is because and to the context of this room title and the conversation we're having today, when you start producing music, because I have an entertainment business background, when you start creating music, when you use a free platform, you can go on SoundCloud, which can be free. You can go to Reverb Nation, that can be free. You can go on YouTube, and that can be free, right? And put your music there, right? So I know that I've been in the entertainment business industry for a quarter of a century. I know that when you deal with music, when you deal with licensing, when you deal with metadata, when you deal with content, Shaquille, glad to see you. It's been a while. Welcome. When you see all these things, right, and you start to distribute your platforms through music, you're going to use these platforms and they're free. That's great. But when you start going to paid platforms that you have to start using to now get on Apple Music, to get on TikTok, to get on Spotify, to get on iHeart, to get on Pandora, you start getting on these platforms that people can listen to you on Tidal, Music. Speaking from the entertainment business on the music side, that's how you have to pay platforms like TuneCore, or you'd have to go to DistroKid, or you go to United Masters. These are paid platforms that you'd have to submit your music to be distributed across these different platforms for your music to be played. And that way you're able to earn royalties, you're able to earn data, you're able to earn fan base, whatever you want to call it, from the musical side, right? When you flip that from music to podcast, it's one and the same thing. Because as a podcaster, you can, and all the platforms I just talked about, TuneCore, DistroKid, and United Masters, those are, welcome Cameron, those are free. Oh, I can say free, semi-free. If you have to pay for some, like YouTube, you might have to pay a little bit more if you're gonna go, subscribe. But on the free side, these are free music hosting dashboards. Now, when you look at free podcast hosting dashboards, we're talking about Spotify for creators, which was Anchor, right? Those are free, right? Those are platforms that you can upload, you can sign up today and start your podcast right away. And that's what I've been doing for the last 6 years. So the question is free or paid? It really depends, because I would say start free, build a relationship, build a community, and then go to pay, and then create your product flagship, create your product map, create your roadmap for your R&D, your research and development studies, create a roadmap from your audience segmenting before you now create it for an audience that you're going to start creating a recurring model. That can happen because when people start listening to your podcast and you start producing faster, you start realizing more people start listening to you. The more episodes you release, the more attention you get. Some people can do once a week. Some people can do twice a month. Some people can do once a year. Some people can do once a day. So it really depends on what you want to do as a host. Because when you think about hosting someone, let's say you're hosting someone at your house, or at your restaurant, or at your office, or wherever you're hosting them at an event. When you're hosting an event, when you're hosting something, you care about the experience of the person that's coming to the event as a guest. So if the guest experience is not met, then there's going to be a problem with the experience at the end, because that means that this person may not come back just because the experience was not met. But if this experience was met and the experience was actually achieved to the point where, because it's even free, it was like, wow, if this was free, I wonder what it would be like when it's paid for. You've given them a premium experience that now makes them feel like, okay, there's more to this, right? You can call it a freemium if you want to call it like that. But you want to make sure that it's also not just about what's free and what's not, because some things can be paid for and you might just not value them, which is crazy, because there's some things that need sentimental value for you to value them in a way that is actually full of, I would say, context and emotional attachment to it. But the attachment has to be so strong that it really makes a whole lot of sense if you think about the why and the bigger picture. So when you now move it between free to paid, it still has the same foundational core value, which is sometimes is missed because people that podcast, it's hard for somebody to actually have a podcast and let that podcast scale because people start podcasting after 8 episodes. It's a sad reality and it is painful to hear. I'll say it again. And I wish this can change, that most podcasters that start don't get past 8 episodes. Why? 8 episodes, if you really think about it, right? If you really break 8 episodes down, because 8 episodes sounds like a lot, it may sound like a little bit, right? I don't know. I don't know. That depends on how you see it. But what I see is that if you look at 8 episodes and you really count it, 8 episodes technically means that it went through 8 weeks. Because if you did an episode a week, that's 8 weeks, which is technically 2 months. So in 2 months, you have created 8 weeks worth of content that's anywhere between 30 seconds to 30 minutes plus. And you've created content on a platform that allows you to access communities that can listen to you through audio devices, through digital devices. Welcome, Sherry and Alfredo. Thanks for being here. And Yolanda, too. So when you think about these platforms, I really want you to think about these in a very specific way, right? And this specific way I'm really looking at today is when you're asking yourself these questions. Welcome, John and Glenda. When you look at these questions as, where am I putting my platforms and what am I getting out of these platforms? It says a lot.
I thought it was me. I was like, how do you know?
John has a hot mic. Hey, John.
Oh, hi guys. My wife's name is Glenda, and you said hi, Glenda.
Oh
She's
my
like, what?
God, Glenda's in the audience too.
I know, we saw that.
So wow, John. Oh my God, nice to meet you, Glenda.
Same here. I was just like, wait, how did he know something here?
Classic. How are you? How are you, John? Happy Sunday.
Hey, happy Sunday, happy Sunday. We are actually stuck on I-90 going into Chicago in traffic. So we are going into the airport. Yeah, everything all's well.
Hope you get there safely, and thank you for being here with us. Really appreciate the time and excited about this week. And you know, I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I've really thought about this through and through, and I'm like, okay, I need to really bring this out and tell a lot of people about this, because yeah, these things could be great, but if we don't see them, we won't know we won't see anything under the hood if we don't see what's under the hood. And that's what I've been able to see, and I'm like, this is a little different, and I think a lot of people don't really know this. But if you're able to understand what you're going to be getting into, it will help you to make better decisions when it comes to deciding whether you want to be on the free side or you want to be on the paid side. Because for the last 6 years, my podcast is called We Don't Play. So you can go to wedon'tplaypodcast.com, or you can just go to your favorite podcast player and type in We Don't Play. If you type in SEO, Pinterest, marketing, you will find the podcast too. And this month, August, is going to be 6 years podcasting. We have over 550 episodes. We're in the 11th season. We're streaming across 151 countries. Yet, for the last 6 years up until last week, or let's say by August 1st, last week, technically, I've been podcasting for free. In other words, I've been using a free podcasting platform, which is very good to use and still is amazing to use. And I 100% still agree with the platform. But there's some things I got to notice along the way that I realized sometimes when you want to shift gears, it really takes boldness. And there's I would say some pros and cons to it, but there are also some if you do a SWOT analysis or pest analysis, then you as a business owner will decide whether it's a benefit or a loss, if it's an asset or a liability. So I've been looking at podcasting from Anchor.fm. And when I started podcasting back in August 2019, when I stopped making music officially, because I'm going to get back into music now because I can pivot both of them together now. But when I started with podcasting, I started fresh. I didn't know the rules of podcasting. I didn't know what was free, what was paid, what was IAB, what was not. IAB stands for Interactive Advertising Bureau. That's the standard way of understanding how you can run ads and actually use platforms that can actually use that standardization chart, which will not make your podcast eligible for monetization. And not all platforms have that because you need to have a certificate. So it's a whole thing. And when I did the SEO deep research, I was like, okay, this is podcasting. Technically, Apple Podcast was iTunes. So if you know how iTunes used to work, when you used to do match search back in the day, you can search keywords based on exact match phrases. And that's exactly what podcasting is compared to Google, which is more broad search. So I was really thinking about this and I was like, let me start thinking about these free versus paid platforms and let you know what's happening so that when you now decide to pivot or stay, it's all on you. Because I've been podcasting for 6 years and I've never paid a single dollar for a podcast hosting platform, just because I realized that you can still do it and still create a lot of great content. We're streaming across 151 countries as of today because I've been using Spotify, which is a great platform. Go to creators.spotify.com, start your account today, and create your podcast. It's a blessing to be on a podcast because you can do so much for free with your time. Think about all the reels, all the shorts, all the videos on YouTube, all the content you've ever produced that ever did well on any platform on the net, on the website, on the World Wide Web. Put it on a podcast and come back in 30 days and tell me that you didn't hit at least 10 downloads. At least. And 10 downloads is 10%. Because what I realized is with podcasting, thank you, Lana, I appreciate you. When I think about podcasting, especially on the Spotify for Podcasters platform, the dashboard, they give about 10%, which I did the math. And I was like, this is crazy because if you're getting one download, right, on a podcast episode, that means you're getting about 10 actual downloads plus on that same episode. Because there's something called an upload limit and a download limit. That's why when you have internet, that's why when you upload servers, when you have workspaces, there's an upload server and there's a download server. When you have Wi-Fi, there's an upload speed, there's a download speed, right? So it's the same thing. What goes up must come down. It's gravity, right? So if you use the same concept, and analyze that scientifically and ask yourself, okay, if I'm going to use this free platform to create this free episode, then great, let it be free. Let people listen to it. But where people really miss it is when you don't use a free platform extensively because they're not going to tell you the rules. And these are the rules. I'll give you 2 scenarios. I've been using Spotify for creators for 6 years and I've just moved over to Amazon. And I'll come to Amazon. I'll talk about that later in this room today. With Spotify, what I realized, they have a mobile version and they have a desktop version. Now, their mobile version is different from their desktop version, which is alarming to me because I was wondering, for the life of me, why do I have only 600 characters available on my podcast description on a free platform like Spotify for creators, yet on the mobile version of the same platform or the same app or the same software is giving me 4,000 characters in the mobile version. So that means I'm only using, because the limit on podcast for them is 4,000 characters. And if I only have 600 characters out of 4,000 characters limit, I'm only using 15%. That's why I said 10%. I was just kind of like giving it a low ball. I didn't want to go too high up there. At least 10 to 15%. You're getting 15% of your actual intellectual property space. If we're talking characters and we're talking prompts, we're talking keywords, we're talking SEO, we're talking phrases, we're talking conversations, we're talking questions, we're talking FAQs, we're talking schema, we're talking language. So when you think about this limits that we're getting, we're like, people don't really see these things. I'm looking at it scientifically. I'm like, this number is not right. Why is this happening? And they won't tell you. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they won't tell you either way, because it's a free platform. Just like Google Search Console, Google only gives you 1,000 rows. Yet there are over 50,000 rows you can get with SEO gets. Yet we also know that there are over 25 plus billion gigabytes of data that Google can store plus that. So if you're only getting a 0.000001% of the actual pie and you don't know what's going on, it's different. I'm in the music industry too. When you hear about artists talking about streams and downloads and payouts and royalties, I see it on both ends. So it's not just music and podcasts. I see the entertainment from a whole spectrum. So I'm looking at this a little differently, not just, we got an episode to upload. I'm thinking about royalties. I'm thinking about license deals. I'm thinking about trademarks. I'm thinking about, these are things that we don't talk about. And if we really start thinking about what we're doing with our platforms, we have to start thinking about how we can create our intangible assets, but also do them in a way that is very copyright friendly and copyright ready. Because when you don't put all the right copy into your description box on a platform like Spotify, it limits your reach. Because now somebody who is your competitor, or who is actually supposed to be on the same wavelength as you, sonically wise, if I can put it sonical wise ways, and put that in the same dimension with somebody who's saying the same thing as you, if I put my keywords in the right positioning and say, this is the episode is talking about, like today's room is talking about free versus paid podcasting hosting dashboards, right? That's the topic. So if someone's looking for best podcast hosting platforms, they're going to think about something between a free or a paid platform. So if it's free, what's going to make it free? It's free because I don't have to pay money on it. I can just upload right away and it goes. But here's the kicker. When you don't distribute your product, that's when the limit actually becomes very limited. It's already limited as it is, but it becomes very limited. It like goes from 0 hard to like 99 hard, because you've not distributed your RSS feed correctly. Now, what is an RSS feed? This is going to be the meat and potatoes of your podcast. If you don't do this one thing, then everything else is going to crumble. The first time you publish a podcast episode, for the first time ever, if you've ever done this before, you'll know what I mean. If you've never done this before, try it out. When you release your first episode ever, you get something called an RSS feed. An RSS feed stands for a really simple syndication feed. Really simple syndication feed. What does that mean? It means that anything, like think about TV and radio, like today I was watching Martin, the series. I was watching literally season 1, episode 1. I just went back in time. I was like, you know what, Sunday, let me just kick back and, see what it do. Because I don't watch TV a lot. I don't have time to watch. So I was like, let me just spend a few hours and just sit back. And I went all the way to the first season, the first episode, just to see how things started. Because I like to see how things start. I just don't look at the top. I look at things from the bottom up. So I looked at this and I said, there's something about this whole idea of having a podcast, but without having this RSS feed, it's going to be hard for you to scale. Because when you first create an episode, there's an RSS feed that's created. This RSS feed is going to be like your unique identification code. Just like when you get your driver's license, when you get your social, when you get your tax ID, when you get your information that is going to be particular to you when it's your birthday. Like I'm talking about things that mean the world to you. Your passwords, your emails, those are unique to you. Why I'm giving you these other examples is so that you can see how intellectually important it is for you to own your RSS feed. Because we had a scenario where we had a client that had a podcast, and it was time for us to authenticate our RSS feed. And we realized that the email that it was attached to was not her email. It was somebody else's email. So we had to contact that person's email to switch it to her email so that she can authenticate it. It's kind of like saying you want to register a car that's not yours and you don't have the title to it and you want to register it. How is that going to happen? It's not going to happen. So it's the same thing with your podcast. Every RSS feed is attached to a unique email address. So if I send an RSS feed authentication token, that means your email is going to receive a notification. It's going to sound like this. And if it's not you that did it, that prompted it, that's going to be a problem, because that means somebody else has your RSS feed. So why am I taking some time on this RSS feed thing? Because once you own your RSS feed and you upload your first episode and you publish it, the first place it goes to is the first place it lands. And what do I mean? If you did it on Spotify for creators, the first episode you're ever going to have is going to show up on Spotify first. That's what happened for me. August 12th, 2019. My first episode dropped on Spotify first. And why did I start a podcast on Spotify? Or at that time it was called Anchor, Anchor.fm. It's still Anchor.fm because when you look at the RSS feed, you still see Anchor in the uniform resource locator in the URL. I started the podcast on Anchor because, one, it was free at the time. I didn't know what I was doing with my podcast. At that time I was like, we'll see where this goes, because we don't play came off athleisurewear, because it didn't just start off as a podcast mantra. It started off as an actual fit. So that's why before the picture you even see here on my Clubhouse profile, the actual picture of the podcast profile, if you look at the logo, that's the actual logo. And I'm actually wearing the We Don't Play outfit on the podcast cover. That's very intentional. So, and people don't really see it until they're like, oh, I was 2 years old. And then you're like, okay, I see the connection. So I did that intentionally to make sure that it stays within the fundamental axis of still making that statement that, yes, that's where we're going as far as content. But at the same time, we have to own our RSS feed. We have to own our intellectual property. And we also have to own our content. Because God forbid something happens to your Instagram or your TikTok or your account on social and you can't access it, or that's the very account you're using to advertise, but now you don't have an email list, you don't have a website, you don't have a podcast that you can reach out to people, you can't broadcast. Like, think about podcasting back in the day. This is what I'll say. Podcasting today is like sending a message in a bottle yesterday. You know how back in the day you used to send a message in a bottle? That's what you do with podcasting. So whoever picks up that podcast within the current wave, picks up that letter, picks up that bottle, opens it, reads it, passes it on to the next person. That's podcasting now on steroids. Because when you have a podcast episode, the reason why it's reaching those streams or those downloads or those plays or those subscribe buttons is because of your RSS feed. So when you have a strong RSS feed, the reason why I started there is because with Spotify, Gary Vaynerchuk still has his podcast, Gary V, still has his podcast on Spotify for creators. Because I did some research back in the day. I was like, yeah, let me just do some SEO research and see who out there is doing it, podcasting wise, and what platform should I use? Because I was coming from a music experience. I have my music with United Masters and with DistroKid. And I'm also registered with BMI, for my music royalties. So I know the music royalty and the entertainment business from the music perspective. And then from the podcast perspective, that's still another angle you have to look at, because you also think about the name of the podcast, you think about the mark of the podcast, you think about all those things. So as you're creating content, you're also thinking about where it's going to land. So I said, yeah, why not start it on Anchor.fm? And that's how I did it. So 550 episodes in now. As of last week, I said, no, it's time to switch gears, because the reason why I was really getting frustrated is because every platform I was going to, they were telling me that I had more downloads and more listeners than I had on my actual dashboard, which was very painful, because I was like, there's no way Listeners is telling me I have all these countries listening in, but at the same time, Spotify is telling me the same number of countries are listening in, but I can't see the threshold from each and every one of them, because everything is truncated to 10%. So what I'm actually looking at my dashboard is only 10% of what the actual value is. So I was like, something is wrong here, because I can't have 151 countries listening in, but I'm having downloads that are within the 10 percentile of the data that I should actually be getting. So it just was not adding up. So I now decided, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to pull the plug and I'm going to make sure I find out what's really going on. So I said, you know what? I'm going to now get into paid podcast platforms. And I did some research. I talked about it. I asked you guys some questions and I wanted to also know what your thoughts were. And some people gave some really great ideas. Some people gave some really great questions. I remember that day very well. And I said, these are my top three. I gave you 3 options for free and I gave you 3 options for paid. So now I'm coming back again to say that I've picked one of the top one that I said in paid is the one I'm on now, right? We're now on Art19 by Amazon, right? Art19 is a beautiful podcast hosting platform. And I even love the name Art19. It's very unique. And I had a conversation with someone that works there and we talked and I said, hey, this is a big move I'm about to make. I've never switched my podcast since I started. And if I make this move, I'm not going to make it again. And if I make it again, it's going to be something bigger than this if I have to. And they said, don't worry, we got you. I said, cool. Within a week, I was praying about it. I was thinking about it. I was like, is this the right move? Because once you do this, there's no going back. It's like you just got to keep going. If it's in, it's in. And I said, yeah, it's time to do it. We spoke about it. I thought about it and I said, yeah, I think it's time. This was towards the end of July last month. And I decided to switch it over because of 2 reasons. One, when you don't have your analytics, that was the biggest one for me. Not even the whether it was free or paid. Mine was analytics. Mine was data. I feel like my data was being, what's the word? I'm looking for the right word. I didn't have enough data to understand what was going on with my community. Like I want to understand my people better. And the platform was not giving me that full solution. It gave me the solution because I was able to know what's going on, but I felt like there was more that I was not seeing that meets the eye. So I decided to say, okay, let's switch this up because one, I want to monetize a podcast and there are ways you can monetize your podcast. One way is by having programmatic ads, which is what's happening now. So anytime you listen to the podcast, you're going to hear a commercial. The second thing that happens is you hear a host read ad. That means somebody pays your podcast to speak for 30 to 60 seconds plus and talk about their product within a script. That's a host read ad. So they'll pay you for that. You can add on fees or anything you want to do, whether it's, putting on a website or a blog or a feature or a cover, you can make it nice how you want to make it creative and really do it in a nice way for you. That makes sense best to you. When you do that, that's another way of doing it. So when you're creating programmatic ads, host read ads, and also baked in ads as well, these are going to be ads that people can find within your podcast and they can actually trust you because they listen to your podcast already. So they wouldn't think you would be selling to them something that you don't approve. Just like you wouldn't bring somebody to your show that you wouldn't approve of. It's the same ethics. It's the same code of conduct. So you respect them the way they respect you. Respect is earned. It's not given. So the way you also treat your ads, your commercials, you're not just going to throw anything on there. And that was why I was very specific on what kind of platforms am I going to use. Because all these other platforms like Buzzsprout, Libsyn, Acast, they do really well, right? Some of them have, some of them don't. And you just have to kind of dice them and see which ones do and which ones don't. But the ones that I know that do and the ones that don't, based on the ones I'm referring to, Spotify doesn't and Art19 does. What do they do and what don't they do? Spotify for creators doesn't run ads on your programmatic dashboard because they have a premium option called Megaphone, which is Art19's competitor. If you really look at the market. So I say it's kind of like doing Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Or you're doing Apple and Samsung. So when you're looking at these companies, you're wondering, okay, what makes the difference between these two? So I was very particular. I was like, I'm not just moving because I want to monetize. Yeah, you can use any platform to monetize. There are many of them out there. There's Acast, there's Red Circle, there's Megaphone, there's Simplecast, there's Art19 too. You can use any of them to monetize. Great. Fine. I was thinking about branding, relationships, experience, ethics. I was thinking about all these things, professionalism, showing up I just wanted to make sure everything was done right. So when I had the call with her, the first problem was analytics. That was now about to be solved. The second thing I was having a problem with is that when I looked at the whole scope of podcasting, I realized that when you start running ads, you're going to start getting very specific with the people that you advertise with, because advertisements are going to start running like water, like a faucet, and you have to be very careful on how you're advertising, because anything can show up, just like YouTube. You can get any random ad showing up on your YouTube or Facebook or Instagram because you're just swiping. It may be based on your search history or your watch history, but it's not as specifically targeted like the way you'd see ads on TV or ads on a podcast or ads on a billboard or ads on a train station or ads in a mall. They're very specifically targeted to your desire because that's the interest that you're coming in with, because that's what you're searching for. So when you start thinking about the bigger picture, it's not to understand how you're able to use these platforms to see the reason why you're using this platform over the other one. So like Megaphone, like Joe Rogan, we all know Joe Rogan. These platforms that are of a CEO, these platforms are a megaphone. They are on Megaphone. It's public information for you to see. So you can see that it's on Megaphone. And you wonder, okay, they're on this platform because of this deal, because of that deal. Spotify made a deal. So it just makes sense. When I think about music, UMG, I think about, Rock Nation, I think about all these great, beautiful industries and these labels. They do amazingly well. And when you start thinking about the parent companies, the distribution labels, you start thinking about the management, the companies, the lights, the events, the everything, post-production. I've seen it all with these things because I'm able to understand what it means in the entertainment business and the showbiz to really make sure that you're not just showing up just anyhow. Because when things start to happen, you have to be very careful as well. So one of the reasons why I now decided to choose, which were Red Circle and Simplecast, is because I was also thinking about customer service. I sent an email to 3 of these companies, and it was Art19, Red Circle, and then Simplecast. Simplecast till today have not sent me anything. Instead, they're sending me newsletters. So I was like, wow, I sent you guys a request. Now I'm getting newsletters. Okay. So I'm looking at the customer experience just from the jump. I'm not just looking at the platform. I'm looking at all the little nitty-gritties to see exactly what's going on. Because I wouldn't want to recommend something to a client when I'm not approving of that, because if anything is to happen, it's going to be on me, and I don't want that to happen. So I want to make sure that they're okay too. So I'm diving deep in here, trying to understand how best we can actually start creating content to start making sure that we have a right connection within the dashboard system. So I decided, okay, let me find out exactly what the best thing is on how to use this platform. And when I asked them what makes them different from these other 2, because I was transparent with them, I said, hey, I'm considering this platform. I even considered Megaphone. I even talked to Megaphone as well. From Spotify. I've had conversations with 2 companies already, 3 through email. And I'm like, which one out of these 3 are really going to be my next home or my next place to call home? Because podcasting is very sentimental to people. Like, people take podcasting seriously. Like, because if you don't take it seriously, then people won't take you seriously. And when you say serious things, or when you talk about serious conversations, that's when things get serious, and you have to also seriously care about what they're thinking and what they're seeing and what they're hearing. So I decided, let me think about it, pray about it, and see which out of these platforms are going to be good. And I did something that I asked God that if this happens, then this is a sign to prove that this is exactly where you want me to go. And it happened. I made a prayer. I said, I'm about to call somebody. And he doesn't pick up the phone all the time. This guy, if I call him now, he may not pick up his phone. I called him because he's somewhere right now. And I said, if he picks up this phone, and literally, and there's a power of timing. Because if I called him 2 minutes later or 2 minutes earlier, I would have missed it. I said, God, it came to my heart, if I call this guy now and he doesn't pick up, then I'm not going to sign this contract. If he picks up the phone before it hangs up, then I know it's from you. It didn't take up to 3 rings. The first ring, I was like, okay. Second ring, I was like, okay. Third ring, I was like, oh my goodness. He picked up the phone and I was like, yo, guess what? I was like, I told God, if you don't pick up this phone, I'm not going to do this. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I told him everything. And he was like, yo, you wouldn't believe it. I was thinking about you in the morning. And he was telling me how he was thinking about me in the morning and what he wanted to tell me. So I was like, damn, you thought about me in the morning. I thought about you in the evening. And I requested something and it came at the right time. That's when I knew, yeah, this is definitely a God move, because I don't just move anyhow. I just have to make sure that things are done well. Just like, how David asked, should I do this? And he did it. If he didn't get the green light, then he wouldn't have done it. So that's the same way I was doing it. And I did it because I was like, yeah, it's time to really get into the space of really creating content. And the second thing that I was really concerned about, which was really greatly appreciated by what the conversation and how it went with the lady that I talked to from Amazon, we spoke about it and I asked the second question. I said, how do you control ads? Because this is another thing too. Yes, you want to run ads, you want to get paid, you want to get sponsored, you want to monetize. That's like the cream de la creme. That's like the ribbon on the cake. You want to do that ribbon cutting. It's nice and beautiful. It sounds like, wow, we actually made it. Yeah, you want to have that Midas touch. You want to have that moment, right? But before you get to that moment, it's going to take a lot of understanding. It's like before you graduate, you have to really understand the concept from the beginning. So I said, I want to give you guys like a red carpet. Just learn from this information. Do your research. Just give you little nuggets. Try it out. Check it out. I'm not telling you to move. I'm not telling you to try it. I'm not telling you to buy. I'm not telling you to do anything, but just listen. And then you take that information and say, okay, maybe I want to start a podcast. Maybe I want to check out this platform. What was it called again? Let me rewind. Let me find out what he said. And then I'll figure out, okay, what to do. Then by the time you start with the free ones, you're like, oh, okay, now I can do it better. Because when you start doing your RSS feed distribution, it gets better for you, right? Because your RSS feed distribution is going to be where it makes the most sense. If you have a product today and your product was being seen in 200 stores, and then by this time next year, God willing, your product is now being seen in 2,000 stores. That same one product, that same one RSS feed, that same one podcast show is being shown in different stores. That's what a podcast RSS feed does. Because when you start submitting to Apple Podcasts, you start submitting to Amazon Music, the same RSS feed. You submit it to iHeartRadio, you submit it to Pandora, you submit it to all these platforms. There are many of them. I can't even list all of them. I have at least 25. So it's a lot of them. When you submit to all these platforms, all you have to do is hit the publish button. And it sounds so crazy. Can you think about it like a car? When you think about a car that's a push to start, when that car is a push to start, you're gone. You're jetting. You're on the go, right? That's because you have created that experience because you push to start. The same thing happens when you push publish on your podcast and it hits all these RSS feed locations that you've destinated every single one of them to be at. If you said that, okay, this podcast feed needs to be on this podcast network, then that means this RSS feed needs to be showing up on this specific website. That's what it really means. So if you submit your podcast RSS feed and it's destined to be on 5 shows, then you're going to be on 5 different platforms because you're showing up on 5 different websites. So it's compound effect at this point. For every one episode that you've published, you have, let's say you submitted to 10 RSS feed destinations. Now you have 10 websites or 10 URLs to the power of 1, if that makes sense, or 1 to the power of 10 URLs. Now, when you have 2, do the math. You start creating more and more and more and more. By the time you have 20 episodes, 50 episodes, 100 episodes, times the number of platforms you're on, that starts to grow, because that 100 episodes times 10 is now 1,000 websites or 1,000 website links, which means you have 1,000 access points. If you do the math and you really think about it, it's low effort, high impact, because it's where you'd really distribute it to that makes sense. And just to give you the second option and the second reason why I chose Art19 as well is because Art19 allows you to decide which shows, or rather, they allow you to decide which brands you want to approve or reject, or let me say approve and disapprove, based on whether you want this website or want this brand to show up on your site, as opposed to other platforms like Megaphone, like Red Circle. There are many of them out there, which are great too, really, really great as well. The major difference, the drawing line between these two, or between these platforms, is that these other platforms don't allow you to select. Art19 does. So Art19 can tell you, hey, you have 5 brands that want to podcast on your show, or they want to run ads on your show. Do you want to approve them, or do you want to reject them? If you approve them, that means any one of these brands that decide to run an ad on your podcast have been given the green light, because you approved their script, or you pre-approved their script. Let me say it like that. Because if they had a script, and let's say you chose Barnes and Noble, or you chose Disney, or like I saw one the other day, Lion King, if you like Broadway, and let's say something is going on and someone is in New York and they love Broadway, and your podcast is listened to there in New York, that ad could run locally because that ad is targeted within that budget for that community, because you're not controlling the ads. You don't know who's spending what. All you're giving them is a gateway to your podcast. Like right now, as you listen to my podcast, Amazon Audible is running before the podcast starts. When I listened to it the first time, I was just amazed. I was like, wow, this is really happening. So it can happen for you too. But for it to happen, you also want to make sure that you're creating content that the right brands, number one, can attract to your podcast show, can attract to your podcast episode, can attract to your podcast theme, and lastly, and most importantly, can attract to your podcast genre. Because when you have a podcast genre, just like, there's action, there's comedy, there's sci-fi, there's thriller, there's romance, the list goes on. It's those genres that are going to attract the right brands, whether it's the people who are going to be wearing the clothes, or the equipment, or the affiliations, whatever it's going to be. Based on those genres, there are certain brands that are going to affiliate with those businesses because of the theme of that experience. So when you start thinking about the brands that are going to start creating content on your podcast, you start wondering, okay, if these podcast shows are going to start showing up with these specific episodes, then the goal is to make sure that you're creating content specifically to target these audiences, so that when these audiences are listening to your podcast, they're not thrown off. Because honestly speaking, when you listen to a podcast episode, if you listen to episodes and you hear an ad running, there are very slim chances of you skipping that ad, because you also want to listen to what type of commercial this specific podcast is promoting, because you already like the podcast itself. You love the podcast. You love the author. You love the stories. You love the questions. You love the takeaways. You love whatever you're taking away from the conversation. You also love the brand that is also going to stand behind the business, because that way you're also able to know what businesses are out there that you probably didn't know about. So when you start creating content to now make sure that you're attracting the right audiences, and using a paid podcasting hosting platform or dashboard like this, then it's easier for you to really allow people to understand where they can actually host their own content. Because this is not talked about much. They even said it themselves. They don't do advertising. They don't advertise much, which I totally understand. So me coming to you without you even asking me for it is me saying that if you didn't know about these things, there's no excuse not to know about them, because the more you're able to understand how you're able to really grow your business as a business and move from free to paid, then it's going to be easier for you to really know how to scale. And there are going to be a lot of questions. Oh, if I move, what's going to happen to my feed? Do I have to start all over from scratch? No. The only thing low key, you have to start from scratch, which is really painful, but it definitely makes sense, which I understand, and it makes sense for anything that you do, is that when you move to a new platform, you have to start again when it comes to the data. So all my data from 2019 all the way through 2025, even though it was 10% of my information, I'm grateful for it, but that cannot move to the new platform. So I have to start from scratch. But guess what? Within my first week or two on the platform, I'm already getting 10 times more data than what I was getting from the other platform, which was giving me 10%. Because now, instead of it telling me 10 downloads, it's telling me 250 downloads. It's telling me 2,500 downloads. Now I'm like, okay, I was getting 10, 3, 4, and 7. And I was wondering, something is not right here, because I can't be getting this analytics and I'm looking at this data and it's not matching. The math was not mathing. So the reason why it wasn't mathing is because there was a download limit, or there is a download limit on Spotify for creators, but they're not going to limit your podcast either way, which is still fine. Because if you submit your podcast RSS feed to all the stations that you want to connect to, now it's your time to really think about SEO consistency and also having a trusted voice that people can listen to over and over again per episode and connect with. Because it takes a while for someone to really hear you, understand you, like you, trust you, know you better than the first time they met you. And it takes a while. So that process is something that you have no control over. What you have control over is showing up and delivering exactly how you came, so authentically you can show yourself through and through. And that starts to happen on the basis of how you show up on your podcast. So this SEO Sundays room on free versus paid podcasting hosting dashboards is because I wanted to come today. And first of all, I haven't done an SEO Sunday room in a while. So it's glad to see you here as well. Rico, Danny, Anisha, glad to see you here. Glenda, Kershaw, thank you for being here. And Stockberry, glad to have you back too. I don't do this all the time, but I felt like it would be good to, talk about this and really come back and give you some insights. Because the last time I did an SEO Sunday room was actually season 10, episode 12. Yeah, that was a while ago. And we're in season 11, episode 19. So it does say a lot about the timeline, because I felt like, hey, it's good to talk about these things, let you know about them, because in my mind, I wanted to know, like, okay, what would be a better option for you? And you know what? We're going to run a poll, because I've been talking about this and I would love to know and see whether you would actually want this as well for your podcast. And I want to see how this is going to be. I'm actually excited to see what you guys are going to say. So free. Yeah, let me just say this way. Free RSS or paid RSS. That would make more sense. All right. So let's see. So I've put a poll at the top, and let's answer this question, because I've been talking about this and I'd love to see your responses. Free or paid hosting services for your podcast? There are two options: free RSS, and then there's paid RSS. You can vote up in the chat at the top, and you should be able to click on the vote to view results, and that way you can also vote and let me know if you're able to click on it. I don't know if you're able to get to your phones, but if you are, please click the link above and so you can let me know, because these are very important things to consider as a business. And you also want to know, do you want to use them? Do you want to connect them? Are you ready to do them? Are you not? And it starts off with how you want to show up, because these platforms are very important for you to look at, but very importantly, it's also very important for you to see where you want to show up as on these distribution networks, because if you're not able to get the full effect, it's going to be hard for you to scale. So when you're using these paid platforms, think about the brands that you're connecting to. Think about the types of ads you're going to be receiving. Some of them may not have everything. For example, I know Red Circle allows you to upload videos, right? You can upload videos as a podcast, which is great, right? Now, Spotify allows you to do the same thing too. So if you have videos, you won't be able to do that with Arc19 because they're only audio only, which makes sense because they're running programmatic ads through audio. So it makes sense to have more of an audio feel than a video feel. But if you want to go video mode, you can do megaphone. I was thinking about Vodafone. You can do megaphone. So you can do these platforms based on how you want them to be, based on whether you want to do video or audio or free or paid. The list is endless. So it's really up to you as well that, if you want to be able to see that for yourself. I don't see anybody putting anything in the poll. So I'll end the poll in 10 seconds since maybe we're not sure yet. And I understand because it's still very new and it's still very, very, very important. But at the same time, I hope you guys also understand it. Or maybe you've not been able to see the poll. Either one, it's a new platform. Is anyone there? Yes, Kershaw. Nice to have you here. Good evening. God bless you too. Thank you for being here. So at the end of the day, the goal for you is to answer this question. Do I want to use a free platform? Do I want to use a paid platform? Do I want to be on a free podcast hosting platform? Or do I want to be on a paid podcast hosting platform? When you answer those questions and why, then you come back to asking yourself, okay, how can I use this to make sure I'm better? Because sometimes you may not need it at the time, but eventually you might actually need it. So your business is going to highly depend on how you structure your content based on how you want your content to be seen on a long-term basis. So how is that going to be played? It's going to be played by creating consistency in building a community when you have a podcast. If you click the link above, it will take you to the We Don't Play Podcast show, which is wedon'tplaypodcast.com. And you can listen to all the episodes and binge, get to know more about what you need. And the podcast right now is ranking in the top 30,000 out of 4.5 million podcast shows globally. And we actually now the number has actually gone up to 4.62 million, according to podcastindex.org. You can go to that website and check the stats. They'll give you live stats of how many actual podcasts are there in the world. So when you also go to podseo.com, that's where you can also see the actual rankings of the show. So I'm giving you free information, and it also has a little bit of some paid in it too, because when you start using these platforms to see exactly where you rank, what you're showing up for, how you're showing up, then it's going to be easier for you to scale, because podcasting should not be hard. The same way you know what to say when you want to say it is the same way you should be able to present it in a way that someone can see it, the same way you envisioned it in your mind. And that's why it's good to start off with free. If I were you, I'll start off with free. I'm 6 years into my podcast, and now I'm using a paid podcasting hosting platform. So I'm not saying use paid or use free. I'm just saying start with what you want. But if I were you, I would start off with the free and move over to the paid when I feel like it's time. It took me 6 years to start paid. So it shouldn't take you 6 years. It can take you 3, it can take you 1. You don't have to do what I did. But I did that because I knew that I thought about this as far as a decade. When you think about websites, businesses, thriving businesses, visionary businesses, long-term businesses, evergreen businesses, one of the major models that I've really learned from these big companies like Apple, Tesla, Disney, you name it, right? They plan in decades. So I was thinking, okay, we're 5 years into the podcast. Now it's 6 years now in August. This is 2025. By the time we're getting to 7, 8, 9, 10 years podcasting, in my mind, I'm wondering what's going to be different. Have I tried something new? Am I comfortable just sitting around with the 10%? Or do I want to scale this up and actually get to really interact with my community and actually have opportunities for businesses to thrive, to be able to reach wider audiences and actually receive data they can actually use to make informative decisions about business decisions that they have over each quarter in the fiscal year? So as a business, I said, we have to make this shift. And it's been very, I won't lie to you, it's not easy to just say bye-bye to a platform just like that, because when you're with a platform for so long that you're so used to it, then you move, you're like, now we have to do things a little differently. But at the same time, it's exciting because now you actually experience something new and you learn across the way. There's some things I've already noticed about the platform that I'm going to send out some emails so tomorrow so that we can also look into them too, because I'm really excited about the way the whole layout is, the interface is. And when you're able to really do this long term, I'll be here to tell you what happens after the first month because you'll be like, okay, this is really happening. It happens. Even if it's 1 cent, I'm grateful because that 1 cent is the 1 cent I never had for the last 6 years that I made in 1 month. So I'm not looking at monetary gain. I'm not looking at how much it's going to be. I'm looking at the impact. I'm looking at the ROI. I'm looking at the connections. I'm looking at the people. So it's a really big difference. And I feel like if you also make that change too, it will benefit you. So I hope this helped you and gave you some insight today, because some of us may not know how these things work, but I want to make sure that you know how they actually start working when you start creating content for yourself, for your business, for your podcast, and for your show. So if you want to be on the free side, be on the free side. Go to Spotify, go to creators.spotify.com, start a podcast, get started today, submit your RSS feeds to all the places possible. And then when you submit the RSS feed, including LinkedIn, don't forget LinkedIn. If you have a showcase page or a company page, go to your LinkedIn company profile settings and then submit your RSS feed if you have a podcast. That would be great for your business too, because within your RSS feed, there's metadata in there. And if you have anchored links that are going back to your podcast, to your LinkedIn, that's a very sweet way of doing interlinking if you didn't know that. So try that out. If you have any questions, reach out to me, or you can listen to the We Don't Play podcast show at the top. If you want to get in contact with me, if you want to get your website started, your business started, anything that you need that you want to get started this month, reach out to me. Send me an email at info@playinc.online, PLAYINC.online, and let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Or you can just directly hit my LinkedIn or just go to playinc.online, PLAYINC.online, schedule a call. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. And by the end of that conversation, you leave better than you came, because now you have a direction with an intentional goal. And most times when you don't have that goal, it's hard to see it because it looks like a moving target. But when you're able to have a goal that is actually targeted at a result with a KPI, a key performance indicator, you're the one that's going to use that metric to analyze it, determine whether it was a positive gain or not. And that's dependent on how well you're able to scale your business from its inception to its exit. And that's all upon you. But I'm excited that you can definitely scale it with the platform like podcasting, because everyone can actually do a podcast. You're not exempted. If you're a content creator, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a coach, if you're a business owner, if you're a corporation, if you're an enterprise, if you're an athlete, if you are anybody, you can. Even if you just started something for the first time, you can start a podcast today because you have a voice. That's the number one reason why. And number two, you can do it. You have a voice and you can do it. I did it in 2019, and that's why you're listening to me in 2025. It didn't happen by surprise. It's because I said, hey, I feel like people need to listen to something different, and I can come here and give them something different. And if they don't feel it's different, then that's fine. But if they feel indifferent to it, that's cool. But if they leave better than they came, then that's a benefit for both of us, because now I feel like my time was invested in something valuable, which is you. So that's where I really make sure that I show up here consistently on a Sunday like this, because some of y'all are not even probably listening to this on a Sunday. So I understand. But if you are and you're here live, thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you. Ruth, Johanna, Danny, CP, Nailin, Falake, Kershor. Thank you for being here as well. Stop. Because y'all are here live. And some people are going to listen to this maybe at the next day, the next year, the next decade. But either way, you're listening to it. And that way you're able to know that as you're building your business, think about where your intellectual property is going to be. Think about where your community is going to be. If all social media platforms were down today, would you have a community to still talk to? Would you have a podcast to still reference? Would you have an email to still go to? Those are the big questions that you have to answer. And if those answers are no, 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 or no, yes, no, or no, no, yes, or yes, yes, no, something got to change, because there has to be a yes, yes, yes. You need to have a website, you need to have an email, and you need to have a product or a service. When you have those three, you can do a lot. with your business. And that's what I'm doing with my podcast. And it just takes one email to 10 to 100 to 1,000 to 10,000 to 100,000 to a million. And there you are, to 10 million to 100 million. So it's very important. In fact, let me say something before I go, because I've always wanted to say this. And I found this, which was very important. And I said it with my close friends. And I said, yeah, I got to tell you guys too, as well. If you've never heard of this before, there was a table that was taken from, I love Reddit so much. So there's a subreddit called Money, right? It's r-money, right? It's on Reddit. And I'm giving you reference because I want to tell you guys where it's from. I want to make the citation first before I say this. They reference 10 levels of wealth. 10 levels of wealth, right? And we're talking about free versus paid podcasting hosting dashboards today. So if you want to be on the free side or pay side, you can always scale, right? Now, there are 10 levels to wealth, 10 levels. And I won't go too much into detail because it's a full dashboard, but I'm just going to run it down real quick. The first level, or level 1, is you have liquid assets between $0 to $25,000. That means you're surviving, you're likely struggling. Employment is a must, and every dollar is valuable. The power is none. Level 2, 25K to 75K. Employment is a must. Strict money management critical so as not to fall to lower levels. Power, none. Level 3, 75K to 150K. Compound interesting begins to assist wealth building, no longer in peril. Power, none. Level 4, 150K to 300K. Employment is necessary, but you can sleep well. Power is within one's household. Level 5, 300K to 750K. Part-time employment is optional, depending on cash flow from investments and location. Power is limited to one's household and or solo operation. Level 6, 750K to 1 million. Absence, recklessness, and foolishness. I don't know how they say that. The door of lifelong prosperity is open. I mean, at that point, you have to you know what they say before I even continue? They say that, I've heard this before, that money really shows you who you really are. So if you're a really good person, when you have a lot of money, it will show in your deeds. Like, great example is Warren Buffett. Great guy, right? And there's nothing wrong you can say about the man. Amazing guy, legend, major respect to him. That is what you see of showing your true character through wealth, right? You can see somebody, good person, good deeds. You just know that person is good. Like, money is not going to change you. If you get $1 billion today, that's not going to move anything because you have a good heart, right? I just wanted to give you that context so that you know that it's not just about frivolous spending. It's also about thinking about who you are as a person, because money really shows you who you are. Like, when you show me your friends, I'll tell you who you are. It's the same way if I give you all this money in this world, I really know what you really want to do with it, because your intentions are coming from the heart. If you want to help people because you want to do this, you want to do that, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be this, that's because it's coming from the heart. So that's kind of like the same procedure that you do with this. So I talked about this and I'll come back to it. Level 6. Right, is 750K to 1 million. And when you think about what they said, its power is limited, but an example is ownership of multiple homes or profitable small businesses, right? That's 750K to 1 million. Now, level 7, we're almost there. Level 7 is 1 million to 5 million. Now, the reality, or the economic reality of each level, especially for the level 7, is that in level 7, the first level where employment is completely optional for 99.9% of people. Influence is becoming solidified in small circles, right? That's 1M to 5M. Level 8, 5 million to 15 million. The economic reality is families should have no financial worries. Living comfortably anywhere on the planet is optional. Influence, reputation, and clout in local community or specific industry can be felt. Level 9, we're almost getting to 10, 15 million to 50 million. All luxury is easily accessible. Influence can expand to city, politics, and industries. And then level 10 is 50 million plus, access to truly rare levels of privacy, security, business, and extravagance. regional and possibly national. I'll say that again, regional and possibly national political, business, and cultural influence. What you've just listened to are 10 levels of wealth from 0 to 50 million plus. And you can be on any level in the world that you want to be on. The world is yours. God told you to dominate the world and everything in it. I am big on scripture. So Haggai 2:8, that's a big one. And you can read that scripture too and see what it says, because all wealth is really God's wealth. Like, God created gold and silver. So we don't really own it. We just are taking care of it. We're managing it. So if you can manage a big farm, it's because you have a big heart to help people. There has to be something of significance for you to be part of that ecosystem. So I'm just giving you the basics, but wanted to make sure I can mention this so that as you think about free, paid podcasting, hosting, how much are you trying to make? How much are you trying to impact? How much are you trying to do? How much are you trying to say? That when you say even one word, it speaks volumes, because people actually understand what you're saying and it actually gives them value in return. So I hope this has helped you. Choose free or paid, but either way, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you with this as well. So it's been a pleasure having you here with me on the We Don't Play podcast show. Thank you, Ruth, Johanna, Danny, Eileen, Falake, and Stock for being here with me. I'm going to be here tomorrow. I'm going to be talking about AI solutions. I'm going to be doing a lot of AI talk this week, and I'm planning to start doing workshops. I talked about it last time, so I'm going to be bringing it back here where we're going to do live workshops, but the replays will be off from here, but they'll be available on the podcast because you'll be able to listen to it there or within another network, which I'll talk about later. But up until then, I hope you enjoy yourselves. Have a wonderful evening, and I'm going to see you guys in the Clubhouse streets and also in the next episode too. God bless you. Jesus loves you, and stay blessed and stay hydrated, because it's getting hot, cold, wherever you are in the world. It can get really busy, but as wherever you are, just make sure you stay well. And I'll see you guys in the next edition. Bye for now. Now, that was an episode, right? Thank you so much for listening to the We Don't Play podcast show. I'm so glad that you're here and you are sticking tight with us, especially to the very end. Now, this is season 11, and we're going to do it differently. And I want to make sure that every episode you listen to has something to give back so that you can also learn more after you listen. Now, We Don't Play podcast show is where you listen, you live, you learn, and you earn. So if you're in any of those positions out of those 4, please make sure that you reach out to me. Send out an email through info@playinc.online. That's info@playinc.online. Or you could go to playinc.online, which is a website, www.playinc.online, playinc.online, and schedule a call so that we can get you on an SEO discovery call to talk about your business and help you with your marketing needs. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope this helped you. See you in the next episode. God bless you. Jesus loves you. Bye.